It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to The World Today. I'm Joke Rogers. Here's what's coming up on the program. On his first full day in office, U.S. President Donald Trump puts all U.S. government diversity staff on paid leave starting immediately. President Trump says he would sanction Russia if President Vladimir Putin does not negotiate on the Ukraine war. Plus, a day of mourning in Turkey for 76 victims of a fire that engulfed a popular ski resort hotel in the country's northwest. The World Today begins right now. Welcome again, everyone. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued an executive order calling for an end to what he describes as dangerous, demeaning, and immoral diversity, equity, and inclusion schemes. In a follow-up government memo, federal agencies are told to put diversity staff on paid leave immediately, specifically by 5 p.m. local time. This is one of the numerous executive actions he signed after his inauguration on Monday. Speaking on the first full day of his presidency, President Trump also said he was considering imposing a 10% tariff on imports of Chinese-made goods as soon as next week. Well, President Trump also vowed to hit the European Union with tariffs. According to him, the EU is very bad to the U.S. His administration is also discussing imposing a 10% tariff on goods imported from China on February 1st because he says fentanyl is being sent from China to Mexico and Canada. President Trump was speaking to reporters at the White House. He had already imposed large tariffs on China during his first term. He said the European Union and others also had troubling trade imbalances with the United States.
We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada. Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at. For Mexico and China, we're talking about approximately 25%. Other countries are big abusers also. You know, it's not just China. China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our cars at all. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take very much. We have a $350 billion deficit with the European Union. They treat us very, very badly. So they're going to be in for tariffs. It's the only way you're going to get fairness. You can't get fairness unless you do that.
Well, in response, China on Wednesday reiterated that there are no winners in trade wars and tariffs tit for tat after U.S. President Donald Trump said his administration was discussing a 10% punitive duty on Chinese imports. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning at a regular news briefing said Beijing has repeatedly expressed its position and that it has always firmly safeguarded its national interests. Mr. Trump's latest comments underscores his long-standing desire for broader duties and a new February 1 deadline for 25% tariffs against Canada and Mexico, as well as duties on China and the EU. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reiterates that his government is ready to respond to all scenarios if the U.S. President Donald Trump imposes tariffs on Canada. Asked about an uncertain timeline on possible tariffs, Mr. Trudeau said Mr. Trump is a skilled negotiator who likes to keep his negotiating partners a bit off balance. Mr. Trudeau adds that Mr. Trump's promised prosperity for America will require Canadian resources to fuel it.
We heard the president's comments yesterday and the directive he has issued to examine the trade relationship between Canada and the United States while exploring the possibility of tariffs. But we remain confident in the facts. Canadian energy powers American manufacturing, businesses, and homes. Of America's top 5 trading partners, Canada is the only one with whom the United States runs a trade surplus in manufacturing. And Canada buys more goods made by Americans than China, Japan, and Germany combined. On top of that, President Trump said that he wants to usher in a golden age for the United States. That will require more steel and aluminum, more critical minerals, more reliable and affordable energy, more of everything to run the U.S. economy full steam ahead. Canada has all those resources, and we stand at the ready to work with the United States to create a booming and secure North American economy. The alternative for them would be more resources from Russia, China, or Venezuela. Canada is a safe, secure, and reliable partner in an uncertain world. We've been here before. During President Trump's first term in office, he announced challenges to our trading relationship that we were able to work through. We negotiated a new Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade deal that has resulted in tremendous growth and prosperity for all three countries. It was a true win-win-win, and I know that the incoming administration highlighted that was a successful win for them that they negotiated in their first term.
In other news, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio from Florida has become the first of President Donald Trump's cabinet nominees to be sworn into office on Tuesday, where he emphasized that U.S. foreign policy under Mr. Trump will put American needs first. The U.S. Senate unanimously confirmed Mr. Rubio, a China hawk and staunch backer of Israel, has just hours after Mr. Trump took office on Monday. Additional votes on other Trump nominees are expected this week. Mr. Rubio was sworn into office by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. The 53-year-old Republican was a long-term member of the Senate Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committees.
Without any mental reservation. As far as the task ahead, President Trump was elected to keep promises, and he's going to keep those promises. And his primary promise when it comes to foreign policy is that the priority of the United States Department of State will be the United States. It will be furthering the national interest of this country. And he's given us a very clear mandate. President Trump's made it very clear, everything we do, and this is true in government, but especially at the Department of State, everything we do must be justified by the answer to one of three questions. Does it make us stronger? Does it make us safer? And does it make us more prosperous? If it doesn't do one of those three things, we will not do it. So that is the goal, and that is the task, and that is the promise that he was elected to keep, and that is the promise he will keep, and we will help him keep. It's a transformational moment. The United States, I think, is now, as President Trump pointed out last night, and I believe deeply, we are headed into a new era that I think will make the world a safer place. We have a president who yesterday, President Trump made clear in his inaugural speech that one of the primary goals of American foreign policies is the promotion of peace. Of course, peace through strength, peace and always without abandoning our values, but I think it's extraordinary that it's something that needs to be said and hasn't been said enough in recent memory.
And on the Russia-Ukraine war, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would likely impose sanctions on Russia if its President Vladimir Putin refuses to negotiate about ending the war in Ukraine. He, however, gave no details on the possible additional sanctions. The United States has already sanctioned Russia heavily for its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Mr. Trump says his administration is also looking at the issue of sending weapons to Ukraine, adding that his view that the European Union should be doing more to support Ukraine.
The war should have never started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. The war in Ukraine would have never happened if I were president. But that couldn't happen because the election was rigged. Well, we're looking at that. We're talking to Zelensky. We're going to be talking with President Putin very soon. And we'll see how it all happens. We're going to look at it very soon. One thing I do feel, the European Union should be paying a lot more than they're paying, because under Biden, I mean, we're in there for $200 billion more. Now, it affects them more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between, right? Little thing called an ocean. The European Union should equalize. We're in there for $200 billion more than the European Union. I mean, What are we, stupid? I guess the answer is yes, because they must think so. But the European Union takes advantage of us tremendously on trade.
Well, more reactions continue to trail the numerous executive orders President Trump signed on Monday. Several Democratic attorney generals have filed a lawsuit challenging the executive order seeking to roll back birthright citizenship in the U.S. The lawsuit was filed in federal courts in Massachusetts. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, at a news conference in San Francisco, says the executive orders violate the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The attorneys general represent 18 states, the District of Columbia, and the city and county of San Francisco.
I am deeply disappointed that we're here one day into the new administration, and also not at all surprised. In the hours after President Trump was sworn into office, he issued an onslaught of disastrous and damaging executive orders, including one that seeks to end birthright citizenship. Sadly, this order and many others come as no shock. Trump is following through on a campaign promise. Today, I'm also following through on a promise to take action if Trump violates the law and infringes on our rights, on your rights, as he did today with what is, frankly, an un-American executive order. I have one message for President Trump. I'll see you in court. We are filed. Our case is filed now as we speak, moments ago, in the District of Massachusetts in the First Circuit. This morning, as stated, the lawsuit challenging President Trump's unconstitutional executive order is on file. It has multiple grounds. It states that the executive order violates the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It violates our U.S. Constitution. It also violates the Immigration and Nationality Act and flouts more than 125 years, a century and a quarter, of long-standing, well-established precedent set by the U.S. Supreme Court. The president has overstepped his authority by a mile, and we will hold him accountable. Birthright citizenship is foundational to our nation's history, to California's history, to our very identity.
Meanwhile, out on the streets, some residents say overturning birthright citizenship would hurt so many people as it feels almost un-American. Some, however, see the upsides to restricting the immigration based on birthright citizenship, calling it a loophole for people to come into the country, have a baby, and leave. The lawsuits take aim at a central piece of Trump's sweeping immigration crackdown. If allowed to stand, Trump's order would, for the first time, deny more than 150,000 children born annually in the United States the right to citizenship.
Our country is built on immigrants, and the reason we have birthright citizenship is to encourage people to move here. And if we want to grow our country, that's the best way to do it. I would like that they keep the 14th Amendment in the state that it's in, for obvious reasons. I have a vested interest in that, and I would hope that the courts, especially the federal courts, take that very seriously.
I feel that people that are born here should be citizens. I think it would hurt so many people that I feel almost like it's un-American. I mean, we've been a country that has welcomed people, so I feel like if you're born here, I feel like you should be a citizen here.
With the current situation that's going on in our country, we could take our money and put it into a lot better situations to help the people who are already here. And I understand that sounds counterproductive to birthright citizenship, but birthright citizenship, that is a loophole for people to come into the country, have a baby, leave, do whatever they want to do. We as Americans, right now, you and I who are walking these streets currently, we see a lot of a lot of disparity. And that money, as I said, could be better focused on helping those who are actual citizens.
I think you cannot send people all away because they might get together and work against this because they are used to live here, and who's going to do the work after that? And it's not sure that you're not coming into a civil war because the people are living here and you cannot send them away.
So what is the attack on birthright citizenship? Well, first of all, let me just say how we got it. We got it through the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It's a constitutional right, and the president cannot revoke it with the pen.
Elsewhere, migrants in northern and southern Mexico are weighing their options after U.S. President Donald Trump canceled asylum request appointments through the CBP One app. Despite the cold weather of around 0 degrees Celsius on Tuesday, a group of migrants waited outside the offices of the Mexican Migration Institute, hoping their CBP One appointments would be respected. In the southern Mexican town of Tapachula, migrants talked to INM agents. Many migrants with CBP One appointments are asking for safe passage through the country. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum said that her government is advising migrants to return to their home countries. The Trump administration said on Tuesday it was reinstating the Remain in Mexico program, resuming an initiative that forced non-Mexican asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for the resolution of their U.S. cases. Let's get more on this. Joining us is Ambassador Joe Kashi, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Right, it's so many things to talk about when it comes to the U.S. at the moment, with the inauguration of the new president on Monday and everything that he's done since then, with all the executive orders that he has signed affecting from people in his country and everyone else globally, really. What are your thoughts on President Trump's returning to the White House? That's the first of all, and the flurry of activities we've seen in the last 48 hours.
Historic, and indeed it is. But the good thing about it is that Trump is very, very predictable. And so what he's doing now, I think many people expected it. And secondly, I think we should also realize that a second term or a second tenure, if you win re-election for your second term, is more or less a lame duck government. And so Trump is looking at establishing a legacy and trying to accomplish his electoral promises. But as you have seen, they are going to run into one trouble or the other. And what you heard from the Canadian Prime Minister, it's a masterclass and a very nice way of saying to Trump, you have practically no idea of what you are talking about. And I also recall that what politicians normally do, and I think this was probably brought out a couple of years ago, I believe by the point after one of our elections, and the cartoon just said, now the elections are over, change your promises. But Trump is aware of the fact that he's a lame duck. In the first term, he did not achieve practically much. Some of the promises he made, he never fulfilled them. I give you one example from the Mexico example. He was going to build, as he said, a beautiful wall, and Canada would pay for it. He never even asked Canada to pay for it. He never even completed the wall. So there are so many loopholes. So these are just electoral promises that he has put into the fore to see whether he can implement them. If he fails to implement them as a result of some court rulings or as a result of a protest, Trump, throw up his hands and say to the people, I did my best, but the courts, won't allow me. And of course, you know how he treats judges. He will pour insults and abuses on judges and say they were responsible for his failure. But I say to people, it's an interesting comeback, and we all just have to wait and see, not just because we do not know Trump, but because Trump is very predictable. And every day, like we did some 8 years ago, everybody wakes up and say, what's new about Trump? So let's everybody just get prepared for another turbulent, chaotic 4 years of President Donald Trump. It's going to be very interesting, and we see how it turns out at the end of the day.
Right. And so immigration and the Mexico issue that you spoke about is just one of those promises that the president's made, and he's trying to fulfill, well, an aspect of it. That wall is not up yet, as you have just rightly observed. But let's dissect the other executive orders he has signed, beginning with withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement and the World Health Organization. What impact could this have?
No, is it not ironic? Without trying to be real, things like that. Normally, the presidential inauguration takes place, in an open space just around the Capitol itself. But they were forced to move it inside to the rotunda of the Congress because of the coldness and the heavy snow that descended on normally, Washington is very cold at this time of the year, but the fact, I think it's the second time they did it also under Reagan, Then when you realize that in the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've been dealing with the fire in California, and just before the Christmas holidays, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina, they were in trouble because of the, tornadoes and the floods that virtually destroyed a number of cities in those countries. You would think it is time for Trump and the Republican leadership and the Republicans to accept the fact that climate change is real and begin to work with the rest of the world to ensure that they address the problems arising from climate change. But if they decide, I think somewhere along the line from them that they can no longer deny its existence, and then they will come back to begin to work with the rest of the world. Look, Trump withdrew from this organization, WHO WHO in the past. And of course, with a new government, they returned because they realized the importance that these organizations play, in terms of trying to work together bring people around the world to address a common global issue. Health issues are now becoming global, as we saw during the pandemic, and the world came together and tried to address it. So whether he denies climate change or not, the reality is that climate change is affecting all parts of the world, and certainly it's something that they will have to address sooner than later.
Another one is a birthright citizenship that's sure to affect many foreigners. However, this is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. How is this going to play out? Do you see litigations, more litigations following this? Some governors have already filed lawsuits against that executive order.
Look, what's surprising is that Trump knew and his team knew. For example, what is filtering out from the White House was that on a number of, for example, what is filtering out from the White House is the fact that his team cautioned him about giving a blanket pardon to those involved in the January 6th invasion of the Capitol, the Congress. But he decided that he was going to ignore every advice and then decided to do it. And I'm sure he knew that this is not just a constitutional issue. I think it has also been decided at some point also by the Supreme Court. And so everybody very series of lawsuits. What we have just seen or heard from 2 or 3 attorney generals of state. It's just the beginning of a long battle that will end up in the Supreme Court. So for now, it will not be executed until the Supreme Court decides the issue again. So these are one of those things. And as I said, Trump is aware that his second term is more or less a lame duck, and he's trying to crowd so many things into it at the same time. And if he succeeds it by blaming it on some people or the other who, who mobilized against him, but definitely he was going to be a peacemaker and a unifier. But when you go through that speech itself, you begin to wonder whether he was serious about being a peacemaker or a unifier, even within the United States. Go and read the speeches of past presidents. They have always tried to ensure that on inaugural day, their speeches are inspirational, uniting the country. Some sections with the alternative lifestyle and things like that, immigrants who have spent years, are no longer part of, citizens of the United States. You are not unifying the people when you do things like that. So we should expect another 4 chaotic and interesting years. And we just wait and see how it all turns out.
Right. And finally to you, about the Panama Canal. Firstly, can the U.S. really take it back? And what would be the implication of taking over?
Well, the interesting thing about the Panama Canal is that the reasons Trump is given has no foundation. He says China has taken over the port. China has not taken over the port. So we just have to wait and see, because he has actually made no concrete proposal beyond, voicing his anger against the fact that it was given away so cheaply a couple of years ago. Look, at the end of the day, sometimes I feel that Trump just looked for issues that will enable him win the election. And he amplified it so perfectly well that a lot of Americans came to, but wait, when the issue of Panama is on the table, you're also going to see a lot of interesting protests, because I'm not too sure most Americans, care about it, but America is gaining and doing well from the Panama Canal as of today. So nobody honestly understands what Trump is trying to do beyond the fact that he just believes that it was given away so cheaply and he needs to get it back.
Right. Ambassador Joe Keshi, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Welcome back. More on Donald Trump's first full day in office. He attended a prayer service at the Washington National Cathedral, where he got a sermon he may not have been expecting, an appeal to protect immigrants and respect gay rights. A day after declaring in his inauguration speech that there were only 2 genders in America and signing executive orders to crack down on immigrants, Episcopal Bishop Marianne Edgar pleaded with Mr. Trump from the pulpit to show mercy on people who were scared of what's to come. The bishop also made an impassioned case for immigrants.
Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals. They may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
Well, President Trump did not appear to be happy during the remarks at the prayer service and dismissed them when asked for a reaction later on. As he returned to the White House, he was asked his thoughts on the service. In a late-night Truth Social post, the president said the bishop was nasty in tone and that she and her church owe the public an apology. Well, it's custom for outgoing presidents to write letters to the incoming leader. U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said former President Joe Biden left him a nice letter inside the Resolute desk at the White House, continuing the Inauguration Day tradition. Take a listen.
Yeah, he wrote me a nice letter. I mean, I did open it last night. And I didn't know. Peter said, "Did you get the letter?" I said, "Wait a minute, let's see the letter. It's sort of a tradition. You put it in the drawer, especially of the beautiful Resolute desk, right?" And I opened it, and there it was. It said to number 47. And it was a very nice letter. I mean, I could show it because I think it was a nice letter. Maybe I will. I think it just basically, it was a little bit of an inspirational type letter, you know. Enjoy it, do a good job. Important, very important, how important the job is. But I think it was a nice letter. I think I should let people see it because it was a positive for him in writing it. I appreciated the letter.
Well, away from President Trump, we turn our attention to the Davos summit happening in Switzerland. World Economic Forum participants arrived at the conference venue on Wednesday for a third day of the annual meeting at the Swiss ski resort. Among the main speakers to address the forum is United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Mr. Guterres says there is a risk Israel could annex West Bank and keep Gaza in a state limbo, adding that there is no guarantee that the ceasefire agreement will hold. Mr. Guterres told World Economic Forum President at the 55th annual meeting in Davos that it's clear Israel is not fundamentally interested in Gaza, but in the West Bank.
We have entered a new era of harsh geostrategic competition. The world's major economies are vying for access to raw materials, new technologies, and global trade routes. From AI to clean tech, from quantum to space, from the Arctic to the South China Sea, the race is on. As this competition intensifies, we will likely continue to see frequent use of economic tools, such as sanctions, export controls, and tariffs, that are intended to safeguard economic and national security. But it is important that we balance the imperative to safeguard our security against our opportunity to innovate and enhance our prosperity.
That was the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen addressing World Economic Forum's gathering, saying Europe has entered a new era of harsh geostrategic competition and will have to work together to avoid a global race to the bottom. Well, for attendees, they are looking forward to U.S. President Donald Trump's address, expecting the new U.S. presidency to impact discussions in Davos. His presidency brings mixed feelings for business people attending the forum. President Trump will be addressing the meeting virtually on Thursday.
I think people will want to wait and see how these words translate into actions. We will not have to wait long, I suspect, but I think people will take their time figuring this out. I think after the first 4 years, everyone knows to keep calm and carry on.
Well, now is everybody talking about the politics, geopolitics, and the AI, and the climate change. So probably a lot of sessions will be related with these three. I think that there is no comment because nobody knows, including me. It's, what he says, but what effect overall to the world, it's still in questions. So I just hope everything for the best, not just only one country, but the whole global countries.
I think for the technology and any industry that deals with regulations and regulated space, I think that's a great news because it allows us to move faster and have better and bigger impacts to more people. So from that perspective, it's fantastic. I think from economy and startups and businesses, it's also good. So we are super excited about it.
Elsewhere, a day of mourning is underway in Turkey for the 76 victims of a fire that engulfed a popular ski resort hotel in the country's northwest. The fire broke out at the wooden-clad 12-story Grand Kartal Hotel in Bolu at 3:27 a.m. local time during a busy holiday period when 234 people were staying there. It took 12 hours to put it out. An investigation has been launched into the incident, and there have been conflicting reports about whether the hotel was up to safety standards. 9 people have been arrested, including the hotel's owner. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who visited Bolu on Wednesday, said that those responsible for the negligence leading to the fire will be held accountable. Flags are flying at half-mast across Turkey in memory of the victims of the fire, while the first funerals are being held. Search and rescue teams are making their final efforts to find remaining bodies. In the Middle East, at least 10 Palestinians have been killed and nearly 40 injured by Israeli forces during a major operation in the Jenin area in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry says there were several airstrikes as a large number of troops entered the city and its refugee camp, backed by drones, helicopters, and armored bulldozers. Israel's Prime Minister said it launched an extensive and significant operation to defeat terrorism in Jenin, long seen as a stronghold of Palestinian armed groups. It comes days after the start of a ceasefire in Gaza and highlights the threat of more violence in the West Bank, where suspected Israeli settlers also went on the rampage on Monday night. Well, a convoy of trucks carrying humanitarian assistance has rolled into Gaza's Rafah on Wednesday as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas held steady for a 4th day. People were seen gathering aid that had fallen off the trucks as they trudged along Rafah's battered roads, flanked by the ruins of damaged buildings. The truce in the 15-month-old war, which has laid waste to the Gaza Strip and inflamed the Middle East, took effect on Sunday, January 19, with the release of the first 3 hostages held by Hamas and 90 Palestinians freed from Israeli jails. Now attention is starting to shift to the rebuilding of the coastal enclave, which the Israeli military has demolished in retaliation for a Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. Meanwhile, Mahanad Hadi, the top UN and official FPR Gaza and West Bank, says nearly 900 humanitarian aid trucks entered the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, the 3rd day of a ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian militants. According to him, so far there has been no apparent law and order issues. The latest arrivals bring the 3-day total to more than 2,400 trucks entering the enclave. Well, Israel's army chief Herzi Halevi says he would resign on March 6, taking responsibility for the massive security lapse on October 7, 2023, when Palestinian Hamas gunmen from Gaza carried out a cross-border attack on Israel. Halevi, who had been widely expected to step down, said he would complete the Israeli Defense Forces inquiries into October 7 and strengthen the IDF's readiness for security challenges. Well, it's not immediately clear who would replace Halevi, who said he would transfer the IDF's command to a yet-to-be-named successor. Despite public anger over October 7, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has resisted calls to open a state inquiry into its own responsibility for the security breach that resulted in 1,200 Israelis killed and about 250 hostages taken. Mr. Halevi wrote in his resignation letter to Defense Minister Israel Katz that on the morning of October 7, the IDF failed in its mission to protect the citizens of Israel, adding that Israel paid a heavy price in terms of human lives and those kidnapped and wounded in body and soul. Welcome back to the world today. We're still in the Middle East, attributing the success of the Israeli-Palestinian ceasefire agreement to U.S. President Donald Trump. The ambassador of Israel in Nigeria, Michael Freeman, has stated that the ceasefire deal is just in the first phase, with an agreement that 33 out of the 93 hostages held in Gaza will be released. He then confirmed that 3 hostages have been released on Sunday. Speaking on our breakfast program, The Morning Brief, the ambassador expressed skepticism over the durability of the ceasefire deal, as he sees no possibility of the state solution if Hamas is still existing. The ambassador further stated that Israel wants to have a peaceful relationship with the Palestinians, as the priority of the Israeli government is the safety and security of its citizens.
We have just started a ceasefire deal. It's not a full peace agreement, and I think that's important for your viewers to understand. This is a ceasefire agreement. It is stage 1 of a 3-stage ceasefire agreement. And in this first stage, the Israeli troops have pulled back to certain places, but most importantly, Israel will be receiving 33 of the 98 hostages that were remaining within Gaza. 3 of those we saw released on Sunday. 3 young women, 3 amazing, strong women who were released by Hamas, Romi and Emily and Doron, who the 3 of them were released. And we still have a further 94 that are being held by Hamas, and the aim of this deal is to get them back. And after we have those back, we will talk about stages 2 and 3 and returning the rest of our hostages. President Trump is somebody who has been very involved in this deal. He's helped us push it over the line. He's helped push Hamas into this deal. And when President Trump says he's not confident that it will move forward, that is because we're not confident that Hamas will stick by this agreement. So there is certainly a skepticism about whether or not the ceasefire will hold, because it's not clear that you can trust Hamas to carry out the terms of that ceasefire. Israel has no interest in being in the Gaza Strip. Remember, we left in 2005. We withdrew all of our soldiers. We withdrew all of the Israelis that were living there. And we did so in order to have a better relationship with the Palestinians in Gaza. Israel does not want to be in Gaza. Israel has no territorial claim to Gaza. We want to have a positive relationship with the Palestinians that are living there. That Israel wants a peaceful relationship with the Palestinians. The Palestinians are our neighbors, and we want to have a peaceful relationship with them. We need
The new Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to Nigeria, Mr. Carlos Rocha Abulu, has expressed his readiness to work with the Lagos State government to strengthen its bilateral ties. Mr. Carlos Rocha Abulu made this comment when he paid a courtesy visit to the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, at the Lagos House in Marina. He says the Canadian government is ready to improve its trade relationship with the Lagos State government and Nigeria at large, because over 100,000 Nigerians are in Canada contributing to the economic growth of the country.
We do have a very vibrant Canadian-Nigerian community, and that includes as well the diaspora, of course, 112,000 in Canada. Some of you know that well, and that is also driving some of the innovation, some of the new businesses that are coming up, some of the technology, and I think it's important that we continue fostering those relationships. Certainly, we've had interest at the highest level from senior executives that were here in the month of June, from banks, from tech companies, from other types of companies that are looking at Nigeria as a place to do business and as a place to invest. And we want to pursue that because we know that with the right stakeholders talking to each other, either here in Lagos or back home in Canada, there is potential to drive that agenda. And hence, the idea of coming to both speak to you about what Canada is doing, what is our plan for the coming years, but also to learn and hear from you about the priorities and some of the areas of interest as we progress in this relationship.
Well, in his response, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu assures the new Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to Nigeria that the state government will create an enabling environment for Canadian government to generate revenue from Lagos State, particularly in the area of culture, art, and tourism.
We keep saying that Lagos is ready for business. It's really to be able to, enhance and say that, Canadian companies who can take a bit of additional risk on us and see, and vice versa. Lagos also want to ship to Canada if all your commissioners say the business, a bit of a December, activity to Canada in areas of culture, in areas of entertainment, in areas of tourism, and strong areas where Lagos and Nigeria, also sits it. So it can be both directional, and we're willing to further engage and see, specific requests, specific, ask that we can be able to deal with, and that's why we're here, to continue to create environment where businesses can do well, an environment where people see opportunities and they can take it, an environment where there's value addition on both sides and real partnerships are created.
Well, outside of Nigeria, the owner of the Sun newspaper has offered a full and unequivocal apology to Prince Harry for serious intrusion to his private life from 1996 to 2011 and agreed to pay him substantial damages. It settles a long-running legal battle between the prince and the newspaper group moments before a trial was due to begin in the High Court. News group newspapers also apologized for serious intrusion into the private life of Harry's late mother, Princess Diana. The legal fees for the Sun's owner, Prince Harry, and Tom Watson totals £10 million, which is expected to be paid soon. Prince Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, calls it a monumental victory and accuses current executives of the group of obstructing justice.
In a monumental victory today, News UK have admitted that The Sun, the flagship title for Rupert Murdoch's UK media empire, has indeed engaged in illegal practices. This represents a vindication for the hundreds of other claimants who were strong-armed into settling without being able to get to the truth of what was done to them. After endless resistance, denials, and legal battles by newsgroup newspapers, including spending more than £1 billion in payouts and in legal costs, as well as paying off those in the know in order to prevent the full picture from coming out, News UK is finally held to account for its illegal actions and its blatant disregard for the law.
Well, that's our show today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.